Welcome to My Money, Your Money, a weekly talk show on generational wealth, wealth management, and personal finance. Now introducing our host, Brigette Lumpkins.
Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to My Money, Your Money, where we talk about all things money with the goal of closing the racial wealth gap. I'm your host, Brigette Lumpkins. I earned an MBA from Wharton and have worked at firms like Goldman Sachs and Lehman Brothers, covering both private and institutional clients, as well as raising capital for investment funds. I'm pleased to welcome our guest, Kenan Peterson, today, a wealth strategist with Baird Private Wealth Management. A Florida native and attorney by training, Kenan has been working with clients to plan the growth and smooth transfer of their assets his entire career. Now based in Colorado, he got to start here in Florida after graduating from DePaul University with his JD, as well as getting an LLM from the University of Florida and his undergraduate degree from the University of Colorado. I'll let him tell you the rest. Welcome, Kenan.
Brigette, good afternoon, and thank you for having me. Great to be here. Very passionate about this topic as it comes to talking about wealth transfer, wealth management, and really empowering people of color, but more specifically, Black people, African-American people, to try to help them understand some of the strategies and tools available to us that we see very common in other communities as we tried, as you mentioned, to really shrink that wealth gap between Black folks and other people. So,
that's right. So much of our wealth gets evaporated in the transfer. And that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we get started, I did want to give you an opportunity, since our guests are the best people, most qualified to talk about themselves, to share anything about yourself that I might have missed.
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head. So I'm an attorney by background, really focus on the asset protection, the estate planning, as well as the taxation and aspects of wealth transfer and wealth planning. Got my master's in taxation at University of Florida Levin College of Law. And then after that, I had the opportunity to work at one of the boutique leading law firms for asset protection estate planning down there in Clearwater, Florida. And I learned a lot about what to do, understanding people's balance sheets, but also making it relatable so people could understand. So what I can give advice, and then it becomes actionable. You can actually put it in place, understand it. And what I always try to do is, my mother was a school teacher, so I try to break it down so my mother can understand, and people like her, so that I want to explain the strategy to you, so then you can explain it to your loved ones, and so you know and understand what's really happening there with your wealth.
That is so key, because I think this is an intimidating topic. There are a lot of technicalities. There are a lot of very specific laws and regulations related to the structures that are put in place or that people leverage to minimize their tax exposure and transfer wealth smoothly. And so it does require someone who is well versed in that sort of translation, right, of the sort of jargon to plain English, so that they understand how it's accessible to them. So the reason why I asked you to come on the show, and thank you so much for graciously agreeing, is we had this conversation a few weeks ago about the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin, the late, great Miss Aretha Franklin, who died without a proper estate plan for her approximately $80 million estate, or that's our estimate. We don't really know. But a few weeks ago, a judge ruled that a handwritten note found in the cushion of her sofa was a valid will under Michigan law. And this kind of addressed a brewing and ongoing and really tragic dispute among her sons, which have different fathers. And we won't go into that there, but that has become a very bitter battle. And at 76, when she died, there was no formal document in existence to govern the disposition of her assets. And she's not the only one. It took 6 years to settle Prince's estate.
Yep.
And I'll list a few who also died from our community without proper plans in place. Tupac, Chadwick Boseman, also known as the Black Panther, Bob Marley, whose estate took decades to settle. He had so many kids and women, and it was a big mess. And Jimi Hendrix, all of these stars died without a plan. So what is your reaction to that? Just emotionally, like, what is your reaction to that?
It's one, not having the right advisors, or actually, and maybe in our community, I think it's such a stigma we have about what we talk about, what we don't share, and just some of the lack of comfort we have from having those conversations. I remember growing up, I'd ask questions, really inquisitive by nature, and I'd always hear, "Well, that's none of your business."
Right, that's
none of your
grown
business.
folks' business.
It's
That's grown
grown
folks'
folks.
business.
Why do you care so much about this? Well,
Right.
it doesn't impact you. Well, it does. As
Yeah.
with the examples you've mentioned, decades long to settle an estate, the family dynamic issues that can come up when you, especially in whether it's a blended family or a family with the same parents, people have different motivations, different interests. And one thing I always tell clients, and you mentioned this, Brigette, that they didn't die with a plan, they didn't have an estate plan in place. I let everybody know you actually do have an estate plan in place, even if you did not draft it. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be complex, and it's going to really be the state who decides the disposition of your assets and not you. And so then it's going to create even more friction points, more tension with the family, because it's really relying on the state instead of a Jimi Hendrix, by the way, huge guitar fan, huge player of guitar. So I love Jimmy, or Prince, who's like my all-time favorite musician. Like when you see these things, like they have a plan in place, like someone's going to dictate the plan, but it's not going to really be what they intended for, or it might, or how they want the assets to go, and they might not want some of these family dynamic issues to be created, or these pitfalls or landmines. But if you don't address it during life, it will inevitably happen. And so what we need to do is be more thoughtful, have those conversations during life, even though we're not comfortable having them. It's better to have those uncomfortable conversations while you're alive and you can control the disposition of your assets than allowing a third party saying, okay, there was no plan in place, so this is what we're going to say should happen, and then have multiple interests, multiple people, your loved ones, fighting over the assets instead of really coming together at a time when they really should.
It's interesting, because you talk about the timing of doing this, right? And when I think of people like Chadwick Boseman, who was young but was sick for a long time, or Bob Marley, who was also young and very sick for a long time, we have they had ample time to plan this. And so when we come back from the break, because we do have to pay the bills, I want to talk about the timing of this conversation with the family. So our viewers, please stay with us. Hang on while we go pay the bills.
I grew up down here in South Florida, so for me, it's a little bit more personal.
For the Mesman & Dover Law Firm, it's about community.
For us, South Florida's our home. You all are our people.
Our family, our future.
The difference we'll make for you, your loved ones, your kids, matters, because to us, it's personal.
If you need us, call us 24/7 at 866-954-MORE.
That's 866-954-6673. The Mesman & Dover Law Firm, youraccidentattorneys.com.
Are you a business owner interested in import-export opportunities? Register now for the Florida International Trade and Cultural Expo, or FITSE, October 4th and 5th at the Broward County Convention Center. At FITSE, you can engage buyers and sellers from over 60 countries, explore the World Expo marketplace, and network with global leaders, trade experts, and surprise guests. Free to attend. Visit FIPCExpo.com or call 954-357-6400.
My Miami, it's a one-of-a-kind combination of bold, vibrant art that's made to be free, to go on stages, walls, or become them. It all leads me to a world filled with warm waters and extraordinary trails. This is when I'm at my best, when I'm embracing my art venture side. This is my Miami. What's yours?
Help comes in many forms. As a Miami-Dade County bus operator, you can help your community, help those in need, and even help yourself. Operators have the opportunity to earn more than $50,000 a year plus built-in overtime, earn more than 13 paid holidays and vacation days, and take advantage of the tuition reimbursement program. Plus, qualified new drivers will receive a $5,000 sign-on bonus. Become a driving force in our community. Apply now at miamidade.gov/busdriver.
Black-owned businesses have been the backbone of our community for many years, serving in sectors ranging from healthcare to security, business support, and professional services. I'm asking you to invest in and support Black-owned businesses. Doing so creates more jobs, expands our economy, and makes Miami-Dade County a stronger, more diverse, and prosperous community for everyone.
Find out more information at miamidade.gov/Black-owned business.
And we're back. Thank you for staying with us. So, right before the break, we were talking about the timing of these conversations, right? Because, people who died young after illnesses like Chadwick Boseman or Bob Marley, they were young, but they were unfortunately stricken with cancer, and had ample time before they died to have these conversations, but clearly did not make those preparations. So, what is a good time to do it? Is it when you're young, when you're older, when you're healthy, when you're sick, when you know you're about to die? When do you have these conversations?
Brigitte, you're going to hate my answer. I can give the traditional law school or lawyer answer where it depends. I'm going to
Okay.
use the answer, the simple answer to a complex question. Yes, all of those are great times.
Okay.
Because your estate plan is not something you set and forget. It's
Right.
something you do. So now, if you haven't done it, do it. And then, I look at major life events or other events. So something I tell clients all the time, you got to visit your estate plan at least every 3 to 5 years at a
Mhm.
minimum. As life happens, things change. Then also with major life events, get married, divorced, birth of a child, changes in tax codes, other
Mhm.
legal changes, just many different times are the birth of a child is another great time to revisit these things. The death of a parent, as you may have inherited assets, you now may have to adjust your estate plan to reflect the assets you inherited. So I tell people when I am in meetings, I don't say, imagine you die tomorrow or next week, because that's some far off time frame. I say,
Right.
imagine you died yesterday.
Right.
Are things the way you want them? Is your family going to be okay if you died not tomorrow, because that's in the future, but yesterday? And really reframing their mind that way, because tomorrow is not promised. And so for me, it's always a good time. And then once you have it, it's not something, oh yeah, in 20 years, let's dust this off and look at it. No, I would say every 3 to 5 years,
Mhm.
revisit it with your estate planning attorney or other trusted advisors and have these conversations to see, is the plan okay? If it is, great. If not, what tweaks we need to make? And so that's something I highly, highly recommend.
So you brought up something about inheritance, and I think that's a real interesting touch point because I think most Black people don't have any inheritance, right? To get, and part of the reason is the racial wealth gap, which is on the order. And I say this every show, and I know that you are aware. The racial wealth gap is on the order of 10x, meaning for every $100 of net worth that a white person owns, a Black person owns $10 in a similar situation. So, and a lot of that is due to the improper transfer of assets. The consequences of not doing this is often the evaporation of the estate. I can't imagine how much money has been spent out of Aretha Franklin's estate to settle this dispute, and same for Prince, et cetera, and the others. What can you talk about for those of us who don't have huge inheritances, but have something, maybe $50,000 even, which could be a life-changing amount to inherit it? How can they get access to the kind of planning and tools that you offer or the insight that you offer? Because that's not necessarily going to be cost effective beyond a certain, below a certain asset threshold.
Yeah, it's always good to at least have a conversation, a
Hmm.
consultation with, an estate planning attorney. There's ones, uh, you know, depending on what level thresholds we're talking, it could be a generalist attorney who can just kind of walk through it. I'm not a big believer of, oh, just go on to one of those websites and just upload and they'll create an estate plan for you. But
Okay.
um, there's different wealth levels, different thresholds. You might have your family attorney who you help out with, who helps you out with a number of things. They
Right.
might be somebody who could step in. As you escalate the complexity of the estate, then you might want to really focus on somebody who is a specialist in the estate planning world, maybe on the tax side. But I would just say, if you know an attorney or even some of the sole practitioners, at least have a consultation, have a conversation with somebody. If you have a financial advisor, a lot of wealth management firms are also really assisting in this to point you in the right direction. That can also help cut down on some of the expenses because they can do a lot of the heavy work for or coordination with the attorney while not providing legal advice, but really educating and helping you make those decisions and come up with a thoughtful plan. And so that you can go to an attorney to draft those documents, and that would really help cut down. Worst case, if you can't afford an attorney, at least have a conversation with your family and
Mhm.
maybe some trusted individuals, see what's important, see what's out there. Worst case scenario, just have a record of who owns what. Have a
Mhm.
schedule of assets. I find that very helpful. If there, if there's a list of the assets that someone may own, especially as a parent gets older and gets a little sicker. Ask them, okay, where are the accounts? Is there any life insurance that might be out there? Is the property titled? If you own the house, is the house titled the right way? And at least make sure there's a plan to transfer that title clear. So those are certain things I would look at.
So you brought up something earlier about how you and your siblings initiated this conversation with your parents, or maybe it was you and you got your siblings to co-sign on it. It was all you. So, a lot of Gen Xers and millennials are dealing with aging parents who may have the same reticence to discuss their mortality, or even if they don't, they still don't see the need to paper their intentions. So what else? You obviously had a willing parents, right? Family willing to have this conversation. What can people who are set to inherit assets do to bring their parents or whoever they'll be inheriting from along in this conversation?
I think it's shifting the mindset and letting people know it's not about that I'm greedy or want to know what I'm going to get. It's explaining, when after you pass away, mom and dad, we're going to be grieving. The last thing that, we want to focus on you and the loss and our love of you. We don't want to also, on top of this, have these, really hefty decisions of what's going to happen with the assets, the house you guys got, your investments, all of that stuff that you've worked so hard to put together. We want to be good stewards of those assets. And the best way we can be good stewards is having an understanding of what's there now, what's in place now. And, in a time where emotions are just so raw and fresh, and people may say things that they can never take back when you're grieving. And so if you can get all that emotional asset stuff out of the way, so you can focus on the emotional grieving, the personal side, that is so much better for family harmony. Because I know parents, while they would rather maybe not talk about what their mortality, what I think they'd rather do is talk about their mortality instead of not having their children talk to each other after they're gone, because we all are going to go sometime. Now, what do we want to do? Do we want to have our family get along after we're gone, or do we want them to at each other's throats? And so I kind of position it like that, maybe a little softer, but you want us talking now and not talking later, or we can talk now and we can talk later.
Right.
So I think that's how I would balance it.
Right. Well, that's a good moment for us to pause for another commercial break. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.
I grew up down here in South Florida, so for me, it's a little bit more personal.
For the Mesman & Dover Law Firm, it's about community.
For us, South Florida's our home. You all are our people.
Our family. Our future.
The difference we'll make for you, your loved ones, your kids, matters, because to us, it's personal.
If you need us, call us 24/7 at 866-954-MORE.
That's 866-954-6673. The Mesman & Dover Law Firm, youraccidentattorneys.com.
Are you a business owner interested in import-export opportunities? Register now for the Florida International Trade and Cultural Expo, or FITSE, October 4th and 5th at the Broward County Convention Center. At FITSE, you can engage buyers and sellers from over 60 countries, explore the World Expo marketplace, and network with global leaders, trade experts, and surprise guests. Free to attend. Visit FITCExpo.com or call 954-357-6400.
Help comes in many forms. As a Miami-Dade County bus operator, you can help your community, help those in need, and even help yourself. Operators have the opportunity to earn more than $50,000 a year plus built-in overtime, earn more than 13 paid holidays and vacation days, and take advantage of the tuition reimbursement program. Plus, qualified new drivers will receive a $5,000 sign-on bonus. Become a driving force in our community. Apply now at miamidade.gov/busdriver.
My Miami is a serene getaway of kicking, swinging, grunting, swimming, spinning, and steaming. It's my special place I can only find in this special place. I call this endorphin-inducing retreat my fitnesscape. This is my Miami. What's yours?
The contributions Black-owned businesses have made to our community are immeasurable, creating over 12,000 jobs and generating more than $2.3 billion in sales annually into our local economy. The Support Black-Owned Business 305 campaign helps these businesses gain access to capital, training, and resources to help them thrive.
Find out more information at miami-dade.gov/blackownedbusiness.
Thanks for staying with us. So before we left, you were telling us about sort of the whole phenomenon of shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations and the erosion of wealth through either improper transfer and or improper management once it's transferred. And can you talk a little bit about that? Because sometimes I wonder if, I had a client when I was at Goldman, because as you know, I used to be in a corresponding seat to yours where I was at Goldman advising clients, and then I had wealth strategists that helped me like you and helped me advise clients. And one of the best ones would say the exact same thing as you, which is imagine you died yesterday, which I love that, right? Because that's obviously an impossible scenario. And so it's not as emotionally charged as talking about it happening in the future, which is inevitable, right? So they know it's going to happen in the future, but they know it didn't happen yesterday. So one of the tools that we did was like, those intergenerational wealth planning sort of meetings. So can you talk a little bit more about training, the next generation? Because I think that's part of the reticence about wealth transfers, that parents don't trust the kids to be good stewards of the wealth. So I don't know if they think they're going to take it with them like the pharaohs or what the plan is, but it's got to go somewhere, right? And even if you wanted to go to charity, you've got to make a plan for that.
Well, and you can even get your kids involved with the charity, especially we're getting into August, September, soon we'll be at Thanksgiving. One of the things I often suggest with clients as they are sitting around that Thanksgiving table, those that are really philanthropic in nature, is, pick, okay, the family, this year we're going to all, see what cause, as we're talking about our blessings and what we're thankful for, how the family can do some philanthropy together. Other things I think about though is, creating a family limited partnership. That's a great wealth transfer vehicle, first of all, for getting money assets outside of your state, but it's also, you can create this family business, this family entity where everybody can kind of have a piece. And then instead of giving assets, like, just investments or real estate or what have you to your child, you can give them an interest in the family limited partnership. And now they're kind of part of the family enterprise. And so now you can also start training them as, and you create roles and responsibilities for the different members of the family limited partnership or limited liability company. And now you can start giving them assets, but you're also giving them responsibility as a member of this entity or this enterprise. And that way you can start teaching them you can start giving them assets, but also responsibilities alongside of it. And you can start training them what it means to have this wealth, what it means to be, in my case, a Peterson. I say that, and right behind me, it's the wrong way, I have my picture of my grandfather and his siblings. I always have that as they look over my shoulder while I work, to think I'm, just to remind me where I came from as we have this kind of conversation. But what it means for me to be a Peterson, what it means for us to accumulate these assets and whatnot. And so that's something I highly recommend. If you're available, maybe create some sort of family entity, drop some assets in there and gift shares of that entity to your kids. And now they can start participating in the wealth. And now they know when they receive the bulk of it, they know how to manage it already, because you've kind of given them, it's like a training wheels type of approach, really.
Right. So for people who are sort of more middle class or mass affluent, right? And maybe I'm thinking they have like a home that, assets that total maybe like say $1 million or maybe even less, right? They may find it intimidating to engage a wealth strategist. What do you say to that? And how do you advise them? What kind of level of expertise do they need to develop on the topic to plan? We're kind of revisiting an earlier question, but I really want to double on that for people who don't have asset levels where they're having family limited partnerships because they're not having assets at that level to justify that kind of structure.
You still have the conversation. I would also make sure that the assets are titled properly, especially if you own a home. One of the major things we've seen when we talk about the wealth gap in our community, I'll try to rush with this, is that since 1910 is the heirs property system and not having clear title on our ownership of real estate. Since 1910, over 80% of the farming land that African Americans own in the country has been evaporated because we did not properly have title of those assets. And so I don't want, if you've worked really hard to own a home and you didn't pass that down properly to your children with the right titling, then you're going to participate in us losing more of this wealth and increasing the wealth gap. And so the best way we can minimize the impact of the wealth gap is to make sure we have these thoughtful conversations so we do not continue to lose our greatest asset, which is our land, which we already have. Right now, it says about 3.5 million acres in the southern United States are in that heirs property system. And so we want to make sure we are able to maintain our property, maintain our ownership, so we no longer lose our assets. And the best way of doing that, if you're a homeowner or whatever, is to making sure your assets are titled properly to be transferred to your children.
Okay, so that means like properly in your name. What does that mean, titled properly? Because I don't even think I know what
it means
that.
it means in your name, and then upon your passing, making sure have it in your will how it passes or in your trust, and then when your beneficiaries receive that asset, go to the courthouse, make sure that the titling is done, that it goes through the probate system if it has to, goes through probate, clears probate. Now it has what's called a clear title as opposed to a cloudy title. That will allow you to easily sell the land. If it's, you ever need FEMA assistance, you can qualify for that. If you want to get, some sort of other type of federal assistance, federal loan programs that might be beneficial, you can also qualify for that. But if you have cloudy title, you're not allowed to do that. And again, since 1910, over 80% of African-American farmland owned in the United States has been lost just due to that heirs property system and improper title. And that really goes to the wealth gap.
Well, that's really helpful. So as we wrap up, this has been a great conversation. I really want to give you an opportunity to talk about what you do briefly and let our audience know where they can reach you if they want to talk about this in more detail.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I do, I'm at Baird. I'm a wealth strategist. I run two areas. One, I lead our ultra high net worth practice for clients of ultra high net worth clients and doing this planning for them. I also lead our diverse client segment initiative. And it's really, we noticed at Baird, we had an opportunity to really grow our client base in communities of color. And so I'm leading efforts in cities like Denver, where I live, Chicago, Milwaukee, Philly, Atlanta, and Texas, to really build that out as a roadmap to really making sure that the communities that we're serving are reflective of our client book. And so we want to make sure that our client book is reflective of the communities we're serving. And I can be reached at KU Peterson, that's Peterson, at rwbaird.com. That's BAIRD.com. And email me with any questions, especially if you want to talk more about heirs property. I know I've got into that at the end of the show, but it's something I'm very passionate about, especially as we look at the causes of the wealth gap. When you lose that much property, when you can have proper titling, I don't want to continue that issue in future generations.
Well, that's a great note to end our conversation. And thank you so much again for joining us and sharing your expertise and your passion about this topic. I feel very strongly about it as well. And I really hope that our viewers learned something today. I'm sure they did. I know I did. So thank you so much for joining us. And to our viewers, thank you for joining us for another episode of My Money, Your Money. Let's work together to close that gap.